Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Now, in the past, we've talked about the ship's Tomahawk missiles and the missile systems on the ship a lot, and sometimes we might have mentioned that this ship was used to test fire Tomahawk missiles or things like that. But quite frankly, we've never given it as much of a treatment as it deserves, as this ship's use of missiles and testing of missiles and how important that was, really. So today's video is going to be all about that. We recently found a September of 1983 Sea Power magazine that talked about the adoption of the Tomahawk cruise missile and congressional funding for it and things like that. And it's a really interesting story that I wasn't aware of. I've talked in the past about how the Tomahawk cruise missiles was a fairly new thing when the Iowa-class battleships are reactivated, and one of the primary reasons for reactivating these ships was that they are ready-made platforms for missiles. It's going to be years before ships with vertical launch cells can be designed and built and make it out to the fleet. But in a world where Russia is commissioning new ships with powerful anti-ship missiles and land attack missiles, and a world where the United States is finding itself in more limited conventional intervention-style missions where they need both a sea attack missile to counter the Russian ones with a longer range than the Harpoons with only like 80 miles, and where you need a precision-guided missile that the Navy can deliver. The Tomahawk's this really new and important thing, and you can put a lot of them on an Iowa-class battleship compared to other types of ships that you might be able to retrofit. Eventually, they throw some on Spruance-class destroyers or some of the older nuclear cruisers, and each one of those can hold like 2 4-cell armored box launchers. And eventually, the Ticonderogas and the Arleigh Burkes roll out with their vertical launch cells, but that's later on. So in 1982, when New Jersey is commissioned, able to carry 32 Tomahawk cruise missiles, that is a really big deal. And so the Reagan administration specifically uses her as a test bed for that. You know, in the past, we've talked about how Wisconsin, absolutely gorgeous ship, has the least mileage on her. She's in pristine condition. Like her thing is being ready to go. That ship is the most modern, the most ready to go. Iowa, crack gunnery ship throughout the 80s. Like, really great long-range shooting from that ship, really accurate firing. They did a lot of testing on that. They pioneered the Pioneer drones on that. So her thing is gunnery. Missouri's thing, obviously, really great place to sign papers. You get a really good signature when you sign things on Missouri. And then, of course, New Jersey, we've always talked about being the crack damage control ship. But New Jersey is also the crack missile ship of the Iowa-class battleships. They're the ones where they tested all these missiles, and obviously being the first one reactivated, her crew had far more experience in developing the doctrine for this and using the missiles, and she ends up not being the one that fires them in combat, but that doesn't mean that her crew wasn't a crack missile ship because of all the testing they had done. The end of the Carter administration, the beginning of the Reagan administration, was kind of a turning point in military spending. During the Carter administration, it comes after we've withdrawn from Vietnam, and so spending is really on a downslope. And then you have things like the Iran hostage situation and other like limited scale flare-ups going on around the world that the U.S. military just wasn't prepared to deal with in an efficient manner. And so before President Reagan is even elected, supplemental funding bills to provide billions of dollars more for the military start being passed. One of those bills in the late 70s, early 80s was for $350 million to procure the very first production run Tomahawk cruise missiles. I think it's interesting seeing exactly which missiles they're procuring. Keep in mind that at this time there are 3 distinct flavors of Tomahawk cruise missiles: TLAM-C, TLAM-N, and TASM. TLAM is Tomahawk Land Attack Missile, with C for conventional or N for nuclear. And then TASM is Tomahawk Anti-Ship Missile. So, The original spending bill, the supplemental bill, called for this $350 million to be spent on 124 missiles. 56 were going to be the conventional land attack, 56 were going to be nuclear land attack, and then just 12 were going to be the anti-ship variant. The supplemental bill passes Congress, goes to the Senate, and the Senate, I think it was the Armed Forces Committee, or one of the committees that specifically looks at military spending, looked at this and was not impressed with the progress of Tomahawk missiles in training. The production runs, there'd been some issues with the manufacturing of them. So they were running slower, and they were some of them were rejected because they were out of spec. And so the Senate cuts $106 million, about 1/3 of the budget, to get rid of the 56 nuclear missiles. So initially, they were only producing 56 land attack conventional and 12 sea attack missiles. So the Reagan administration comes in, and John Lehman, one of his big things was he was going to do things ahead of schedule, under budget. He was going to reorganize stuff to make it run faster. And in many respects, he achieves this. New Jersey is rolled out something like 6 months ahead of schedule and under budget, and that allows him to get more Iowa-class battleships reactivated. And likewise, he kind of turns around the Tomahawk production schedule, but he basically tells the Navy that New Jersey is going to be the first surface ship to get missiles. We're going to do all the testing on this ship. It's probably a little bit of a political move, showing that the battleships have this capability. One of the selling points to get the battleships reactivated, even though they're 40 years old at this point, is that they will have these advanced missile systems on them. And so he's definitely sending a message when he's doing all of his surface warfare test shooting from one of his battleships. The ship is commissioned with armored box launchers. In fact, she has ABLs from at least 2 manufacturers. They're a little bit different. So it seems like they were just taking whatever they could get off the production line to get them on the ship to get her out there in time. But they didn't have missiles in them. She doesn't receive missiles until about 4 months after she's commissioned, which isn't an uncommon thing at all. But at that time, she only receives 8 missiles. And we don't know exactly what that mix is, and we don't know which ABLs they go into. She's able to carry 32. She has 8 separate armored box launchers, so I don't know if they put 1 in each launcher, if they put 4 in 2 launchers, but there were only 8 to go around, so she gets 8. And again, we don't know. They're probably all the conventional land attack sort. They're definitely not nuclear at this time in March of 1983 when she first gets them. But probably the first TASMs, the sea attack variant, aren't installed at that time, which I assume because it's several years before she test shoots one of those. So March of 83, she gets 8, and the submarine Guerrero, SSN 665, gets 8. And those are the very first Tomahawks to go to sea. A couple months later, on May 10th, 1983, New Jersey does the first test shoot of a Tomahawk cruise missile from a surface warship. This was a TLAM-C that she fired from off the coast of California into the continental U.S. into a test range. 2 years later, in December of 1985, she test fires her first TASM anti-ship missile. She's also the first Iowa to test fire a Harpoon cruise missile, although she's not the first ship to test fire it like she was. And there were test ships that had launched some of the test variants, but New Jersey was the first warship to fire one, and she was firing actual production run Tomahawks, not the test missiles. By the mid-80s, Tomahawk production is up in full swing. All 3 variants are being manufactured. The Iowas are actually carrying full loadouts of these missiles. And then, of course, during the first Gulf War, both Wisconsin and Missouri will fire several of their Tomahawk missiles, including a fourth variant that has a bomb dispersal package into Iraqi positions. Wisconsin, in fact, was coordinating all of the missile shoots for the Allied forces in the area. And so at the end of the day, it's pretty obvious that getting Tomahawk missiles to sea quickly by reactivating the battleships was successful. It was able to be accomplished significantly quicker and in significantly higher numbers than had they purpose-built a new ship that would have taken probably 4 or 5 years longer than just reactivating New Jersey with these armored box launchers bolted on aftermarket. So what do you think are some of the monikers that the Iowa-class battleships deserve? Do you think New Jersey deserves to be called a crack missile ship? Or do you think some of the other ones deserve other titles too? Let us know in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to donate to support the museum. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about us and the channel. Thanks for watching.